everybody. Thank you for coming this morning. I have to say I didn't know why anybody would show up because it's not the most maybe interesting topic. So I hope that I can give a little bit of a breath and you guys can see what it is. This is not the first page, by the way. Yes, that's the first page. Okay, so I took the growth. So first of all, I guess you could ask, what is Mewah, right, as a start. So the next page talks about who Mewah is. Oh, there's a clicker. That's wonderful. So essentially, we're an agri-commodity space. When I meet people, I just tell them I sell cooking oil. It's so much easier. But what it is that we have factories in Malaysia and Indonesia. We take cooking oil from all over the world, whether it is from palm oil, soybean oil, canola oil, all types of oils. We process it, and then we sell to 100 over countries. Now, this is a commodity, so it's a very hard business, very thin margins. And then what we also do is we have factories in Malaysia and Indonesia, and we sell to 100 over countries all over the world. We have a dairy plant, we have a biodiesel plant, we also sell rice. So that basically covers what we do. It's not working out. Okay, so while we're waiting for the screen, I don't mind, but yeah. So do I just click? Okay. So as at Mewah, I would say that we have a ESG inclusive strategy, and that strategy would cover the UN Sustainable Goals, which covers environment, social, and governance. So what would I like to talk about? So that's a brief introduction, right, about the company I represent. It's a very traditional business. We are listed on the Singapore Stock Exchange. No, so today I would like to breeze through some of the sustainability constraints that probably we have. So the first thing today is I would like to talk about palm oil. Now, we're going to have the El Nino season coming up. And so it's reality. For the first 5 years, it has been a lot of rain. For the next 5 years, I'm expecting the weather to be very dry. So that's reality. And with that, I think we will start getting some of the haze, right? So I would just like to address the elephant in the room, which is palm oil. Now, I personally believe that palm oil is a very sustainable crop, okay? Now, I would say that 70% of all palm oil is grown in Malaysia and Indonesia. So basically, it is right here in our neighborhood. And so why do I think that palm oil is a sustainable crop? Simply put, if we were to depend on any other type of oil, there would not be enough land for us to feed the nation, okay? Palm oil is a very, very productive crop. For 1 ton of oil, you only need 0.26 hectares. Whereas if you were to look at soya oil, for 1 ton of oil, you would need 2 hectares of land. And all the other oils fall in between, whether it's rapeseed oil or sunflower oil. So simply put, if we did not have palm oil, there wouldn't be enough land to feed the world. And we must know that vegetable oil, right, if you want fat in your body, vegetable oil is easier in your body than animal fat. Animal fat just requires a lot more resources to produce. And out of all the vegetable oils, palm oil is extremely takes up the least resources in terms of land to produce. And palm oil also produces 35% of oil. Sorry, so it's just a lot less land to produce. The second thing is a non-GMO crop. So for soybean oil, I think a lot of you know that it's already genetically modified crop. Palm oil is a non-GMO crop. And it has a lot of other food benefits like tocotrienol, B+. So it is a healthy oil. If you were to look at soybean oil, there's a lot of trans fat. It doesn't have frying strength. So if you were to deep fry something, you actually need palm oil because it has a very high oxidative value. So we understand what's oxidation, right? You create free radicals, which could end up being cancerous. So palm oil is a very good oil. And we are very lucky in Southeast Asia that is right at our doorstep. Now, having said that, palm oil has been a little bit controversial over the years. You know, sooner or later, it's the next slide. But, so sorry, these are the nutritional values of palm oil. And also, in the past, I would say 15 years, palm oil has been responsible for taking whole villages out of poverty, especially in Indonesia with the commodity boom, right? And so as a GDP contribution for Malaysia, Indonesia is a big part. And we're talking about people who used to be on subsistence farming. And subsistence farming means these are people in the villages. They may not have the education that we have. They may not have had the access to heavy equipment that we have, right? And in reality, I would say that these people also deserve a living. And palm oil has been able to help them as a perennial crop to greatly improve their livings. And also palm oil is a very diverse crop. So it's found in everything, whether it is as a food ingredient, beauty products, or biofuels. I would just like to say this. People always like to say they want to reformulate so that they exclude palm oil from the supply chain. Good luck. It's not possible. Just saying. For all your bakery compounds, the type of fat that you want to use is not possible. You will need palm oil. So it's really just about the reality of the situation, right? So I would just like to repeat the message. I'm speaking without notes, but palm oil is a sustainable crop, and there are a lot of benefits to palm oil that are not often stated. Next page. So, so then, obviously, why am I bringing this up, right? And the reason that we bring this up is because palm oil sometimes gets a lot of flake. Now, as a company, we don't really own any palm oil plantations. And as I said, I process all types of oil, right? So I'm an interested party, but I don't own the plantations. So we are a factory. And as a factory, we've always tried to have a very sustainable footprint. We've tried to reduce our carbon footprint. We try to reduce the amount of water we use. We reduce waste protection, zero workplace fertility, full supply chain traceability, and I would say we support women's empowerment. I think for the longest time, we had a majority female on the board. At a time when people were asking about more female representation. And in fact, all the senior management were female. Now you could ask, why are we supporting any of these things? We do it for really honestly, it made commercial sense. So it wasn't because we were trying to sustain the environment or anything like that. It just made great commercial sense. You can imagine we're a factory, we're about producing the cheapest that we can. So obviously, if you use less electricity, less water, recycle your waste, it's just going to make sense. Zero workplace fatality, I think is very obvious, right? We want to guarantee the safety of our employees. I'm going to cover the full supply chain sustainability later. And as for women, I would say when we started up, we were a very small company. so this is reality. The men always thought they could find a better, they could find bigger companies outside, and they were always more ambitious. And maybe they didn't believe in what we could achieve, and the women stayed. And because the women stayed, they became senior. So like I said, it wasn't because we had a big program or anything, but I would just say that women are just really good employees. Okay, so the last topic I wanted to cover on was full supply chain traceability. So I highlighted earlier that palm oil is a very good crop. So why is it that palm oil gets such terrible flake all over the world, right? And what I would say is that previously, they deserve probably some of the criticism, right? In the West, they deforested generations ago, at least 5 generations ago. They were already deforested. They cleared out all the land and they grew soybean crop. In the Amazon forest today, they are still clearing the crop for soybean oil. That is the reality, right? But in Asia, our economic development took place a little bit later. Palm oil came to Malaysia in the 80s, right? And what they did was they deforested, but they also cut down a lot of the old rubber plantations in order to grow palm oil. So that's why I said Malaysia is relatively safe. Peninsula Malaysia is relatively safe. It's third generation crop already. So we don't go into the deforestation issues. Now in Indonesia, economic development happened a little bit later. So it happened in the 2000s, and that was when they were deforesting. The unfortunate truth was the world had changed. Suddenly climate change was a reality, and nobody wanted people to cut down the forest anymore. And so when the NGOs came, there was a lot of criticism in Indonesia because it was no longer fashionable to cut down forests in order to grow a crop. And because of the work of the NGO, it has greatly reduced. In fact, with satellite now, you're no longer allowed to cut down trees, more or less. And if you were to cut down trees today, the NGOs will come after you, the banks will come after you, and if you were a business doing it, you will not want any fire on your estate, because you're damaging your own economic. You know, fires hurt people, hurt the property of the big plantation owners. So I would say that it doesn't happen today in the same way because of all of these things. However, there are the smallholders and there are medium-sized companies who do not have access to financing anyway, but also who do not have the capability to understand. And for smallholders, you see in Singapore, we don't understand maybe what the complexity of a big country called land rights. In Indonesia, anything less than 2 hectares, there's no paper. So for example, when we buy a flat, we have our land deed, right? In Indonesia, for this population size, it's not possible. So what they will say is that the village will govern the thing. So a lot of them, they don't have their own individual land title. And it is in the village records that are manually written, right? And so it is really in these small villages where it has been subsistence farming for years and years, life is different, right? And so it is difficult to bring them up to the practicalities of what's happening today. They don't have access to heavy equipment, and so it is different. And what I would really like to say is this: when there's a fire, these villagers are the people at the forefront. They are the ones whose children have lung disease, who are coughing, whose eyes turn red. At the beginning, they don't understand that the cigarette butt, and it's the nature of peat soil, right? And it's very, very dry. Like they haven't had rain for ages. Right now, today, if you go to parts of Sumatra, they haven't had rain. And so the land is very dry. You take a cigarette, you smoke, and I'm sorry, a lot of them are chain smokers. So the cigarette butt goes, okay? So that's what happens. So this is reality, right? And then if you want to fight the fire, okay, we can send the fire engine, but where's the water source going to come from? Remember, the lakes are dry because they've had drought. These are practical realities, right? So these things do happen. I'm not saying they don't. I'm merely saying that we're trying to improve the science, the infrastructure, and all of these things. So how do we as a company operate? I would like to say we're like evangelists. We go out and we try to teach them how to do these sustainable practices. We listen to their stories. A lot of them are heartbreaking stories. They tried to feed their children, send them to universities, have a better life through this livelihood. But we sit there and we try to teach them how to have better sustainable practices. We partner with people, so these are the sort of stakeholder partnerships we have, so that we can teach them, so that they can have better agricultural practices. I have 3 minutes left. Next page. And we educate smallholders by policy implementation workshop on the ground. Next page. And then obviously we try to be sustainable, so we try to do energy transition for our factories, solar panels, renewable energy, all sorts of things in order to recycle, to have a smaller carbon footprint. Next page. And then the last point, I believe at the end of the day that there are a lot of sexy things that are going on in the world today. They talk about hydrogen, they talk about LNG, ammonia. It's wonderful. But it's not going to help us halve our carbon footprint by 2030. It's not possible. And in order to halve our footprint, I think the investment has to happen today, and that would be biodiesel. And that is what we produce, right? So, just saying. And so this would be the energy mix, right, in the future. So today we will invest. We will move towards more biomass, more biodiesel. Hopefully by 2050, some of the new technologies will take place. But and then therefore in this segment, biomass as an energy transition, I believe, will play a bigger role. And this comes from EY's consultancy. So it's not my own internal research. Next page. And so that's what we do, biodiesel, and that as a company is what we produce, right? And if we are able to use cooking oil, which is what we do, it can reduce your GHG emissions by up to 90%. Okay, anything else? So that's our footprint, that's our strategy. And sooner or later, we hope every year to step forward in this direction. Okay, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much.